And so now we're going to be covering the GACC settings, and you can follow along in your site as well. Just don't make any changes, please. So we have our GACC settings, and that covers the GACC abbreviation code, the parent GACC, your Twitter username, and the background image. So if I go back to the site, to get there, we go back to configuration. And then I have my my GACC settings right below my basic site settings. We have our GACC specific settings. So I'm going to click on that, and you should be able to find that there as well. But the GACC abbreviation code, that's what's powering. Let me go back to the stage. Is it just stage or staging? That's what's powering this, and automatically getting your preparation, or preparedness level for you. So that's the purpose behind these abbreviation codes and the parent GACC. I think, guys, is that only for the that's only for the stage 3 site. So you can leave that blank. And then below we have our Twitter username, and that is what powers our Twitter widget. So all you have to do is just this short name right here. So Great Basin CC, and is all you need for that Twitter username, and it'll generate that Twitter widget for you. And then the background image, I'm gonna open up that in a new tab. So I created this specifically for the site, and I'll create a template for you guys later on. I'll email it to someone that will probably distribute it to all you guys. But this template kind of this center stack area is where the site is, so you don't need to have this image fill out this area. And then all I did was I reversed the fire image so it looks a little bit bigger, because this image wasn't this big originally. But you have the ability to upload whatever background image you want. So I can click remove, and then click choose, and from here I can pick any background image. I'm gonna pick a different one so you can kind of see. I need to get a big image. Typically your image should be fairly large, and this is a good example of what not to use. Like a portrait style image will never work, because you need to fill it out. Everyone's screen is like landscape, it's very wide, so this isn't going to cover that, but something wider like that will. And so let me snag something that's really big. Let me just resort this. It might be too big to upload though. Okay, that one's pretty good. So I picked it. It says it's too small. So I need to, unfortunately, on my Finder, I can't see that it needs to be at least 1800 pixels wide by 1200 by 1256 pixels tall. So and here I can't see those dimensions, but at least I can find a bigger image. That's an interesting image. These are just stock photos. Let's see. That one might be big enough. Let's try this one. There we go. Okay. And then it says, it's big enough. Yay, you can use it. So then you click save. And that's the maximum. 2800 by 1400 is the maximum that it's going to be scaled down. So now let's actually go back to the site and see how it looks. If my resolution was a little bit smaller, let's see. Let me see if I can temporarily change my resolution. Hopefully it's not going to totally mess up. No, I can't get it smaller, I guess. But on a normal screen, like that's not scaled for these displays, you're going to see a lot more of this background image. Another nice thing about the template that I'll send out is I'll include a fade at the bottom, because eventually it's going to stop your image. So it's nice visually to probably put a fade to black. But that's how you can customize your site, by adding a background image to it. You can change it anytime. But I'll have this template available. You don't have to use obviously this fire image. I'll have this kind of squared out where you can just drop an image in here. I'll have two sides, left side and right side, and then you can just kind of duplicate the side so it'll make it look like a nice widescreen image. So you can emulate what I have right here, and you don't have to like set it all up in Photoshop, but you will need to have Photoshop to use the template. But if you don't have Photoshop, you can always tweak your image. It's not a requirement. But this is kind of a nice standard where you have a bottom fade and a very wide image. Anyone have any questions about the background image and how all that works? And any of the other, the GACC abbreviation code, the Twitter username, any questions about those? It's pretty self-explanatory, those GACC settings. But, it's nice that you have the ability to, it's very structured where it's just a field that you go in and you can just edit, hit save, and be done. You don't have to like find a path and upload it to a certain path or anything. It's pretty straightforward. Yep. A fixed background image. We could do something like that. I'm trying to think of why I didn't do that. Yeah. No, that's yeah, I mean we can definitely, I can change it to do that. I'm just wondering, like, is it going to be limiting for any other users' experience? Like I've done it where it's it actually like fills up the space, but it doesn't look like, if you have a really nice high res image, it looks really nice. But yeah, essentially, like, the only thing is you'll only ever see a certain amount of that background image, since it's the content scrolling. His question is, sorry, what's your name? Might as well find out now, since you're Nick is going to be asking all the questions today. No, just kidding. Yeah, everyone funnel your questions. So Nick's question, which is a really good question, is why don't we just change that background image to be fixed, which essentially means I can scroll the page above it, but that background image doesn't move, and then we don't have to worry about it fading down at the bottom, and I don't see any problem with that. Like, do we have a consensus? Do we all agree? Is that a good idea? Because I can change it so it works that way, and then you don't have to worry about fading it on the bottom. Like, to me, I don't think that's a bad idea. This is our democratic experience right here, so I can change that. That's definitely not a problem. And that's what today's for, is to make these small tweaks and bring up little things. So
the background image would stay there, and then just the content would be?
Exactly. Yeah. And so the reason why is then you don't have to like have this. It looks like it looks gross. And so that's why parallax. Let's shift this at this amount of time. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the reason why we had a black image and we faded it at the bottom, and it gradually faded, and it looks nice. And you, like, before, no one noticed it until like you put an actual image in there, and it's like, this just doesn't look right. Which is this is a good experience to test out, because typically this is what you're gonna throw in there is a nice landscape photo and nothing touched, and so this is what you'll have. But with it being fixed, it won't have that. It'll just the content will scroll, but this background image will just stay there.
The only thing that'll change though is that different machines will see different parts of that image depending on how they're scaled and
Yeah.
what resolution they're doing, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
some people may see a lot more of the image than others will.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about too. So, yeah, some of that. Yeah, that's the bad thing is like you might upload this really nice image, but people with shorter screens, like a 13-inch screen, is only ever gonna see a small portion of it. Because like right now they're scrolling down and they can see the whole thing, but the fixed one you'll only see that top portion. So that's the downside. There's always gonna be upside and downside to these things, and
Brent, sometime, over the course of the next couple of days, can you show how it's going to look on a mobile versus a tablet? I mean, I know you've done that for us in some of your demos. Just so folks have an idea, this is
right.
built to scale to what you're using to view it.
Yeah,
So
and
it'll be equally functional on a smartphone, on a tablet, on a computer, on a TV screen. It'll scale to the size.
yeah, exactly. And so, let me just do that right now. Go away. Let me shift this over. Okay. So here's the site. Maybe I won't log out because I won't be able to log back in. So this is the site on mobile, emulated in Chrome on a iPhone 7, and really like you guys can do this too, and I would highly recommend using Chrome. I'm going to be a Chrome snob and just tell everyone, please use Chrome, don't use Internet Explorer ever, because you make my life very hard. And anyone else that works on the web, Edge is all right, but really Chrome or Firefox are going to be your best choices to have the best experience for the web and the most secure. Okay, so that being said, this is how to do it. So you right click and then you go inspect, and typically this is like docked down to the bottom like this, and you're going to be like, oh, what is all this garbage? Well, this is all the code on the site. But really what you're looking for is this tool right here. It's not going to be selected by default. It's going to be like this. You're going to select this little icon right here, toggle for devices, and then you can start looking at your site as if it was in mobile. This is like kind of just a responsive tester emulator. It's not exactly how it would be on like an Android or iOS device, but it's as close as you're gonna get. And you can change how this scales. So you can do this on any site. This isn't just for the NIC and GACC sites, which is nice. So I can scale this to be 100%, and if I wanted to get this window down, I can just kind of move it down to the bottom. But this is what it looks like. So the changes are the logo and the site name are centered. We now have a mobile nav versus that standard horizontal nav. And we have our drop downs still work like they did on desktop, but everything's kind of like just scaled down so it now fits and is optimized for that user experience on a mobile or handheld device or a tablet. And so everything's still accessible. These are still links in the map. You can still have your IMSR report, Twitter feed, all of the, instead of the 3 maps horizontal, they're now kind of like in a row, vertically stacked. And that's kind of like the typical way of on a small handheld device, how it'll be lined up. We still have our logos, and to see our footer nav, all we have to do is I can undock this and move this to the side, and then now I can see if I can scroll down. It's being annoying. It's unfortunately, like, I'm very limited to what I can do since I'm on this HDMI connection, but you should be able to see the footer when you scroll all the way down. I'm gonna redock this. But yeah, this is how you can view any site on mobile. If you want to change the type of device, you can just use this little drop down right here. You can view it on a Galaxy. See, there we go. There's our footer. And then we can see it on a iPad. And it looks smaller because it's set to scale down, but I can set it to 100%. So this is what it would look like on an iPad. So the iPad doesn't have that mobile nav, but it is now stacked, and so this whole site is set up so it's responsive, so it works not on a device specific layout, but on kind of like on the widths and on breakpoints, so it can flow, and later on when Android releases, they just released Galaxy 9 whatever, and now there's always going to be new devices. We're not specifically setting this site so it's just for the current devices. It's going to be more future proof than that, but it doesn't work on Apple phone or Apple watches. I'm sure everyone has one of those, so but for all standard devices, iPads, iPhones, Androids, anything like that, it's gonna work great. So, but that's so if we go on to like a sub page, let's go on to what is not the intelligence. That's what I want to get out of this thing. Intelligence, yeah. So like on the intelligence page where we have all those cards, and I can move it down, you can see how the cards now are stacked on top of each other. But when we have a larger device, I'm going to change it to responsive. This is kind of a cool feature. You can scale it manually to whatever size you want, and it'll tell you up top what the width is. So yeah, so these are some like front-end web development tools, but if you ever wanted to see how the site would look like emulated on a mobile device, that's what it would look like, and the current site now has been optimized for that. Does anyone have any questions about that? Nope. Okay, cool. So let's stop the recording.